We're T-minus 20 seconds.
'Hey guys, Nuan here with a movie slinger review of First Man. Now I'm a big fan of NASA and the space programs. I love movies like Apollo 13, Gravity and Armageddon. Anything to do with astronauts and spacewalking and I will eat it up. Now you may hate Transformers 3, but come on, that Apollo moon landing scene, that was really cool, right? Anything to do with Apollo and I will watch it.
Apollo, moon.
So I was really excited to watch First Man, and this is what I thought about it. First Man is directed by Damien Chazelle and stars Ryan Gosling as Neil Armstrong and Claire Foy as his wife Janet. The movie starts in 1961 with Neil Armstrong joining Project Gemini following the death of his young daughter, and shows how the space program developed all the way up to the moon landing in 1969. This movie does an excellent job of showing the sacrifices made during this period in order to make the moon landing possible. Most of the technology is experimental and a lot of Neil Armstrong's astronaut buddies die during testing. We see the effect it has on him. It's putting more pressure on him to work harder. It's putting more strain on his relationship with his wife. She's worried sick every time he goes on a new mission. His kids don't really understand the dangers involved. There's a great emotional scene where his wife forces him to sit with the kids and explain why he might not come back. Both Ryan Gosling and Claire Foy give really good performances in this scene. Neil Armstrong is an engineer, so he's very methodical. Ryan Gosling plays it very quiet and reserved. He's not exactly bursting with charisma. Now normally I'd have issues with a protagonist like this, but this is based on true events, so it's good that they didn't try to make him more fun to make the movie entertaining. Thankfully, we have Corey Stoll as Buzz Aldrin, who's the complete opposite of Neil. He's got this sarcastic sense of humor that always gets everyone else annoyed, especially Neil. Another thing I noticed was this dry sense of humor whenever they talk about the space race. Whenever the Americans get one step closer to the moon, they realize the Russians just beat them to it. I don't know if this was intentional, but I thought these scenes were presented in a really funny way. The movie also shows how the public perception of the space program changes over time. Before the moon landing, everyone is highly critical with public protests and congressional hearings, and then after the landing, people are suddenly very optimistic and hopeful. Yeah, we know Neil Armstrong survives all this, but when you see just how close he was to almost dying several times, it keeps us on the edge of our seats, just like the guys on Mission Control. Damien Chazelle has crafted these painfully intense space mission sequences that are absolutely terrifying. This movie is scarier than The Nun. The opening scene with Neil Armstrong piloting a rocket plane to the edge of the atmosphere was amazing and brilliantly sets the stage to the kind of intensity we can expect from the rest of the movie. In the Gemini 8 mission, we get these claustrophobic point of view shots from inside the space capsule that really give a sense of what it must have been like. You see how crude the early space tech was. There's a tiny window to see outside, it's never very clear, and these guys have to make very precise calculations and steer the vehicle. It's an impossibly scary task. And then on top of that, the capsule starts spinning violently. I felt a bit sick just watching it. I should warn you that if you're prone to motion sickness, there are a few scenes that might make you uncomfortable. When the astronauts are seated in the capsule, the heavy thud of the hatch closing and locking them in will drive you crazy. It feels like being entombed alive, and during the launch sequences, you can almost feel the vibrations shaking the rocket. You can hear the metal squeaking and groaning under the stress, like it's some creature screaming in agony while being torn apart. The sound design really enhances the experience. The musical score by Justin Hurwitz flies under the radar at first, but in the climactic moments of the Apollo 11 mission, it starts building up. Then there's this epic moment when the lunar lander flies over the Sea of Tranquility and the music comes crashing in like a wave. I get goosebumps just thinking about that scene. I love the whole final act on the moon. There's also a bit of catharsis as Neil Armstrong's character reaches a conclusion with his personal struggles, as well as finally reaching the objective that he spent looking at from Earth for years. The cinematography is top notch. They shot this movie on film, so there's a nice grainy texture to it that kinda adds to the 1960s vibe. So, conclusion. The space missions were beautifully shot, they're intense and scary. I like the music and the sound design was excellent. Ryan Gosling and Claire Foy give great performances. There's a large supporting cast with Corey Stoll, Jason Clarke, Kevin Hines and Kyle Chandler. They all do a good job. Wish there was a little more Buzz Aldrin, but hey, the movie is not called Second Man. The story of a grieving father trying to get over the death of his daughter adds a lot of emotional weight and gives us a good reason to latch onto these characters as they experience these historic events. I like how the movie is not just about the victories, but also the many failures while getting to the moon. I like how Neil Armstrong is not doing this just for the sake of it. He actually believes space travel will ultimately help humanity. There's a scene in the movie that perfectly sums it up. Neil Armstrong describes how when you're in space and you turn around and look at Earth, it changes your whole perspective. And I think that's what the movie is saying. Yeah, a lot of people died and they spent a lot of money to make it happen, but the technologies developed will help save the Earth. The one negative I can think of, and I'm really nitpicking here, the movie is a little slow and has a runtime of 2 hours and 20 minutes. So if you're not into astronaut stuff, you might get a little bored. But if you're a fan of NASA and space exploration, or you're a history buff with an interest in the space program, you'll love this movie, and I can easily recommend watching this in a movie theater. So there you have it. Did you guys watch First Man? What did you think about it? Leave your thoughts in the comments below and don't forget to like and subscribe. Movie Slinger out.